Thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Hey guys, so we got Robin in this one, taking a look at his Instagram. As you can see, there's really strong orange tones. There's a silky smoothness to the image and there's lots of detail. So we're gonna have to like bring up the shadows, gonna have to add in a big long S-curve in the channels to get that smoothness to the image. But it's just kind of contained to the blacks and whites. And we're working with one of his images. I'll just pop it up on screen, the one he sent me. Also, there's a few teals, but it's definitely the oranges, and it's the original oranges in the image, not like split toning or placed into the mid-tones with curves. It's just the original oranges. But if you do like his style, you can come up here, guys, and he has his presets for you guys. He's also a guest editor inside my course. So he takes you through a whole hour of training on 2 of his images that you can download. You get the settings as well, and you follow along step by step.
Hey guys, my name is Robin X Benjamin on Instagram, and I'm a travel, outdoor and landscape photographer from Austria. And I'm also one of the guest editors inside of Maarten's course. I'm really happy to be able to join the course among so many incredibly talented creatives, and I think it's truly amazing how much knowledge Maarten has gathered in one place with this course.
So that's inside the course. Very stoked to have him in there. Let's get into this tutorial and try to create something like this. Right, so getting into this one, I'll show you guys the cropping. Here we just cropped in a bit. Now we kept the image on a lean. I quite like that, so we will leave the cropping like that. And now let's just talk about settings. So 24mm, really good for cars. So a slow shutter, so we get all this motion blur. And then F5, practically everything in focus. And then a really low ISO because everything's quite bright because it's snow. So let's warm everything up. So we look quite purple and blue. So let's whack in a good amount of warmth, and now that looks a bit better, but more white balanced. And then we will add in some of these blues. Like we definitely do have blues, we'll add them in with split toning curves and stuff like that. So we want to bring down the highlights. So some of the things I'm going to do here is because there's characteristics in his other edits that you can sort of tell to bring into these edits, or this edit. Let's up the shadows so we can see everything. Okay. And then some contrast. Let's bring down the clarity for the smoothness. And then let's up the dehaze for a bit of like a contrast. I kind of like it. It's kind of like contrast, but it's kind of like bringing down the highlights as well. Alright, so let's bring down the saturation, and then we're gonna bring out the vibrance a lot. He's got a very vibrant style, and then while we do that, we'll just bring down the saturation of a lot of these. Okay, let's keep going. Right, so we got our exposure about right. Now we need to put on that smoothness he has to his image. So let's just bring out his whites a bit more punch. If we come down to the curves, I'll turn on the curves. They are already done, and I'll take you through what they're doing. So this curve is going to give us that smoothness. It's going to take out that digital look. It's going to give a little bit of a fade to his whites, a little bit of a fade to the blacks. Nothing too harsh. You're not going to look at it and be like, that's really lifted or anything. It's just really smooth. If I just reset it, so it does add in a bit of contrast as well, and that's going to bring out more colors. So you can see it slightly more saturated. And then it adds a bit of contrast in the mid-tones because we've got the shadows coming down, we've got the highlights coming up. So a bit more contrast, smooths it out as well. And if we just come into the color channels, now there's not much going on here. You can get away with not using these. So if we look at them, blue and red are basically exactly the same. There's a tiny bit of cyan getting put into the highlights. Cyan, opposite of red. Otherwise, in the shadows, these reds and blues are exactly the same, but we've got a little less green. So we're going to be adding in a little bit of a purple to the shadows and into the midtones kinda. So there's not much going on here, guys. So if I just turn the curves on and off, it's gonna be mainly this one playing a big role in the outcome of this image, just really smoothing everything out. If we come down to HSL, before we do HSL, we might have to do split toning. So I'm gonna up the oranges and reds because all of his other images have really strong oranges and stuff. No greens in this. So if we just come down to split toning first. So in here, we're gonna try to add in all those blues now. So let's go with like a teal or so. Something like this, that looks like his blue. And then we won't have it so strong. And then in the highlights, I think we'll just do basically the same. And now let's work with the blending and balance. I quite often play with this to see what I like. So the blending is new and I actually really like it. It's a really good move from Adobe to add that. So balance, we've had that before. So I'm gonna favor the shadows, I think, to add more in. So I'm gonna go this way. I always just play around with these. And then for balance, we're gonna go, I'm gonna go in this direction. So we're going to be adding, so say this half of the slider is shadows, this half is highlights. At the moment they are 50-50, but if we go this way, we are now adding the shadows to the entire image, but blending is different to balance, so we still have the whatever we added in with the highlights in this half of the slider. So we still have the highlights being added, it's just that we also have now the shadows getting applied to the entire image. So that's what's happening there, and I think we're done with that. We're going to up the sharpening because he does have a pretty sharp look, except we have brought down the clarity, so it's going to be quite smooth, and then you just add in quite a bit of sharpening and you can get a pretty crispy look still. We should have done this earlier. Let's do profile corrections. Now we're gonna have to add in lots of vignetting and stuff like that to shape the lighting, and we'll do that real soon. That might be our next thing to do even. We'll just do HSL first. It might be hard to do HSL because we haven't exactly got our lighting right. We're basically only working with blues. So before we play around, we're gonna do maybe just a bit of a teal, bit of a green, and definitely from his other images, we're just gonna go a bit warmer on these. We might have the tiniest bit of yellows in the lights, yeah. He has warm greens in all of his other images, we'll just do something like that. What we definitely want to do, so luminance is the brightness of colors. We did this in a different lesson, I can't remember whose lesson it was, but it looked really nice. It might have been just our last video, but bringing down the luminance of the blues looks really nice. I really like this. So, gonna bring that down. It's practically affecting the entire exposure of our image. We're gonna bring that down, and then we get that contrast, the brightness with the aquas, and just bring out those lights a touch, tiny bit of those colors in the image. Maybe to bring out some pop, we'll bring the purples, and then that kind of creates, you can kind of create contrast within your image by changing different luminances of the colors that are next to each other in the color wheel, so they can create a nice pop. Not much magenta. Okay, so what we'll do now, we'll probably come back to HSL to fine tune things, but we're gonna add like this vignette and a bit more dynamic lighting. So let's come into here, and now I've already placed them because it would be real painful to add them all again. So this one we want to, if I press O, this is where it's affecting. So we've got it affecting the outside of the circle, and it's fading inwards, so it's going to give us a vignette. Let's bring this down. Let's add in some more blues. Let's bring down some clarity. It kind of adds to the motion blur. I mean, adding in clarity works as well, but it looks very smooth and blurry down there. or at least like around here and stuff. We want it real nice and smooth and blurry. Even more smoother with the dehaze. And then we are good with that one. We've got another actually just here. And this one, press O. So we're just gonna basically do the same, but it's gonna be a bit more intense. It's gonna slowly help it gradually get stronger. So let's, if I press O, actually it might just go clarity down. Yeah, so we get like more appearance of motion blur. So if I just delete that, it's going to be a subtle effect, but I think it looks nice. So we will just go into the filters now. So we want it like darker and crunchier just here, like at the bottom. So if we grab this one, we're going to go with, and it's on an angle because our photo's on an angle. We're going to go add in clarity because just here at the base, we want that crispy texture. And then it's just, I see this all the time when I do edits. It's just bringing down the exposure of the foreground. Yeah, so we're good for that one. Let's do this one. So if I press O, affecting the sky. We look not too bad for our sky, but let's just brighten it a touch. And shadows down a bit. Maybe a bit more dreamy. Dehaze, like if you wanted some cloud detail. I mean, that could look cool, could look like it's snowing. We'll just do a little bit of this. So that's our filters. Now you can see how we've got that like vignetting round and it's just drawing our eye in right to the subject. So what we also have to do to bring the subject out is place some filters to really make it pop. So I've actually already got settings applied for this. So on the lights, we're just upping the shadows, upping the whites, and upping the clarity, upping the sharpening, so you can tell what that's gonna do when you put that on the lights. Now it's pretty subtle. That's just gonna bring it out a bit. So right in the middle here, we're adding in a touch of clarity and a bit more sharpening right into the middle. And then we've got another one here that we're just a bit of exposure, a tiny bit of contrast, blacks down a bit, more contrast there too, whites to make things pop. It's pretty subtle adjustments, and then again we've got quite a bit of clarity there that adds in quite a crisp contrast. So if I turn that off and on, it kind of brings out all the shine in the car, and then we've just got a bit more sharpness there as well. So yeah, now we're really bringing out the car by the vignette and adding contrast to the car. So we're looking pretty good, and I think we're done, guys. So if we just get our, if we just go here and we go down and we hit reset, here's our before and after. Okay, so I would say like our key takeaways here is the smoothness this adds. So if we reset channel, you can see it lacks a bit of contrast, and we get that smoothness to the image. We bring down the clarity, gives that motion blur feel. We drop the highlights lots, very common to get a cinematic look. You drop the highlights, bring up the shadows so we can see everything. And then I'd say the colors, it comes down to the split toning here, turning that off and on. We add in that tealness, sharpening, yeah, kind of important. Crisp, looks real sharp, and bringing down the luminance, the blues. Yeah, I think otherwise we practically nailed it. So yeah, I'm just gonna leave this one there, guys. Reset, before, after. Alright guys, so if you like that one, I definitely recommend you join the course, because we've got Robin himself teaching for an entire hour in there on his images. You get the images to download and to follow along with, and that's along with like 50 other top creators out there. They break down their editing, they give you the raw image, they just make sure there's nothing missing in the process of going from an unedited image to the edited image. You will have the edited image on your computer. You won't be frustrated with not having the raw image or like not knowing the curve settings. So none of that. You go from A to B, all the settings from like 50 creators. I'm trying to get to 100. We'll easily do that in not too long. And then I'm also there to teach you guys to fill in all the gaps. Like, why are these guest editors doing that? Like, what are the commonalities between these guest editors? Just knowing the tools. I make sure you know the tools really well so you have the ability to follow these guest editors and understand what they're doing. And then you will rapidly improve your editing. Yeah, we've had nothing but awesome feedback. Here's a few guys, what they said about the course.
This course is by far the best investment I've made in myself as an aspiring photographer. Ahead of any gear, ahead of any camera that I've purchased or any lens.
Basically everything that you need to know to edit a photo the way you've always dreamt of editing a photo, you will learn in this course.
Little later, I actually developed my own style. I'll try to put like a picture here of what my feed looks like so you can see how cohesive it looks now.
So there's honestly a ton of feedback we've got. So yeah, if you're interested in the course, check out the Instagram page. There's a free training that I break down really important concepts. Like if you don't know these concepts, you're gonna really struggle with editing. And that's in a free 1 hour training down in the description. So go watch that if you haven't already. That's a must watch if you want to be a photographer, edit photos. So make sure you do that, the free training. Comment people you want to see on this channel. Follow me on Instagram as well, and I'll catch you in the next one. Let's talk a bit about Squarespace, again, the sponsor of this video. If you want to display your hard-earned photography work in a professional way, do it with Squarespace. With award-winning templates, they are very intuitive and very easy to use. They let you design your website exactly how you like, whether you want to sell prints or display your galleries. Do it with Squarespace because they cover all your needs. Go to squarespace.com for a free trial, play around with creating a website, get comfortable with the interface, and when you're ready to launch, use the link in the description to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain.